What is going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 3, the Diego Colley Football Show, and we made it. NFL Week 1. This is what everyone has been waiting for. We had some college football to hold us off for the last 2 weeks, but we're here. In this episode, we're going to talk about every single game that's going to happen this week. I'm going to give a preview about every single game. Then I'm going to talk about some AFC teams. We did NFC on the last episode, and then I'm going to end it with a few college football games and some award predictions for the NFL awards. So how I'm going to do it is I think every game that I see, I'm going to talk about a little bit, and I'm going to give a pick. And I think as we go down week to week, I'm going to track how my picks are doing, hold myself accountable, and hopefully we're looking good. So first game, Cowboys-Eagles Thursday Night Football, Dallas in Philadelphia. It is a 8.5-point spread, Eagles at home, banner night, and I think this is it's a good game to start the season because obviously we know what the Eagles are going to be, defending champs, loaded roster, but it is overlooked a little bit. They did lose a lot of got pieces from that defense, especially in that secondary. No more Darius Slay, no more CJ Gardner-Johnson. And I think that comes down to the story of the game. An 8.5-point spread, that's a lot. Obviously, the Cowboys traded away Micah Parsons. Players airing out there, not too happy with that on social media, but Jerry Jones expects his team to win. They acquired George Pickens, and I think the George Pickens CeeDee Lamb duo on offense could definitely keep this game interesting. I think this is definitely going to be a close game. We know Dak puts up stats. I think he's going to feed his two receivers versus this Eagles secondary, who's I think could be the weak point of that defense, and this is a tough matchup for them in the first game of the season. I do think the Eagles will win, but it's definitely going to be entertaining. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of points scored in this one, with Dallas putting up a lot to hold ground, but with no Micah Parsons, Saquon Barkley, and that Eagles offensive line should dominate this game. And I think that's where it ends up, with Eagles getting the ball late fourth quarter. Cowboys need to stop, and they can't stop that run game to hold on for the Eagles to win that game. Then Friday, we get some Friday Night Football in Brazil. Chiefs at Chargers, 2 divisional games to open up the season. And this is it's an interesting spot for the Chargers, and not a soft landing for Harbaugh's second season in LA. Only a 3.5-point favorite for the Kansas City Chiefs, though. No Rashee Rice. Is previously people had thought that he was going to be able to play the start of the season, then the suspension would kick in, but almost randomly in the last week, they reverse it to where, or they came to their decision. So he won't be out there. Xavier Worthy is going to need to have to take a big step up for this Chiefs team. A lot of reports coming out of camp that this is going to go back to the old Chiefs offense. Mahomes is going to be letting it fly, more big plays. They kind of come down to just dinking and dunking, moving their way on the field. Mahomes wasn't putting up the stats that he necessarily was early in his starting career. So, but it seems that they want to get the explosiveness back in their offense. Obviously, they're not happy. They fell short last year. Travis Kelce lost a lot of weight in the offseason. He looks slimmer. He looks faster. It'll be interesting to see how he looks. It'll also be interesting to see how this Chargers offense looks. Obviously, they lose Rashawn Slater. Joe Alt sliding out to tackle to take his spot, but that's a big hole. He's one of the best tackles in the league. They had just extended to him, and that's a big loss for them for blocking for Justin Herbert. Interesting how Omarion Hampton looks. Obviously, the first-round rookie, explosive. They said Najee Harris. I believe he's questionable. I think he's going to play with that eye injury, but I'm not expecting too much from him. I don't know how much he really even practiced. He'll maybe get a few snaps, a few short down carries, but Omarion Hampton's going to have to be the vocal point of that offense. Obviously, they got Lad McConkey out of receiver, but I mean, after that, they had Mike Williams. He retired. Keenan Allen coming in to replace him. Rookie Trey Harris, who kind of seemed like didn't have the greatest camp. But I mean, it's just to see from this Chargers offense, if they can protect Herbert, it should be a good early test for them to see where they're at. Because people are saying them or the Broncos, can someone dethrone the Chiefs? I don't think so. So I think I'm going to take the Chiefs in that game. And now moving on to Sunday. Sunday, great slate of games. We have 8 in the early window. That Octobox is going to be on Red Zone. And we'll talk Bucs Falcons first. I'd say this is probably the game I'm most excited for in that early window. I think it should be fireworks, 2 great offenses. Obviously, the Bucs, Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka. I'm not sure if Godwin's going to play. You got Bucky Irving, Rashad White. And then the Falcons, the I'd say it's really the debut, the coming out party for Michael Penix, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. He has the whole offseason as the starting quarterback in Atlanta, getting comfortable with those guys. He's telling everyone to draft Kyle Pitts. He's going to feed Kyle Pitts. I think Drake London's going to be a star this year. He's really going to assert himself as with a good quarterback who can throw him the ball. I mean, because it was retirement home Kirk Cousins last year. He's still there as the backup, but that offense was hard to watch. They got Bijan, who should be an offensive player of the year candidate if they give him the ball as much as they should. I think Raheem Morris knows that his job is probably on the line this year. So this is a tough game out of the gate for them. But coming out against the Bucs, you never really know. These games are always entertaining. The 2 games last year, very good games. I'm taking the Falcons to knock them off at home. Home underdog, Tampa Bay -1.5, pretty much a pick 'em there. I'm taking the Falcons. Up next, we got Cincinnati and Cleveland. And I think the story of this game, Cincinnati at Cleveland, Cincinnati 5.5-point favorites on the road. The story here is the Bengals. They have to get out to a hot start. Zach Taylor, I think the seat's hot. And the last few years coming out slow, losing their first 2 games. Last year, the most disappointing loss of, I mean, if they win the game week 1 against a really bad Patriots roster, Gerard Mayo, head coach who ends up getting fired, if they win that game, they probably make the playoffs and potentially Burrow wins the MVP. They lose, they come out slow. You can already see the urgency's there. Bengals starters played, I think, the most out of any starters in the preseason. They doing anything they can to avoid this slow start, and they get the Browns. It's a favorable matchup for them. No excuse. There's no excuse for the Bengals not to win this game. I'm taking them to win. I'm just going to be taking picks, pick 'em, team to win. I'm not touching spreads in my little pick 'em series I'm going to be doing. Up next, we got Miami at Indianapolis. Indianapolis 1.5-point favorites at home. Pretty much a pick 'em there again. These 2 teams, 2 coaches, I think, candidates to be fired during the season. Shane Steichen tries to pick the safe move, starting Daniel Jones at quarterback. Mike McDaniel, how long is his leash with the Dolphins? He's really gotten quite the leash so far, and they have nothing to show for it. Tyreek Hill makes all these comments in the offseason, doesn't want to be there. He's calling out Mike McDaniel. We can't run Devon Achane in short yardage. He's not a captain this year for the first time as a Dolphin. Like, that's just not a good look for one of the guys who's your best player. They get rid of Jalen Ramsey in the offseason. So in this spot, I mean, both these coaches are looking for a win. A win for both these coaches kind of eases them off. Obviously, it's not going to ease them up, but in the future of the season, if you have a loss to a team that they both realistically, looking at it from both sides, you're like, I should beat the Dolphins. You're not very scared of Tua. Obviously, they got Tyreek and Waddle, but what has that offense really proven? Nothing. If you're in a Miami situation, you're like, we're playing Daniel Jones at quarterback. This is a game we need to win if we want to take the next step. If Mike McDaniel has an average season and wins 7 to 9 games, he's getting fired. They need to get off to a hot start to win this game. That's why I'm taking Miami. I hope that Tua has gotten a little bit better in the offseason. Hopefully he stays healthy this whole season. He needs to get Tyreek the ball. Tyreek Hill too many times last season would go periods of the game without getting him the ball. He would then throw him a bubble screen and expect him to take it to the house. Like, you have to feed a guy like that when he's on your roster. Up next, we got Vegas at New England. This is a fun game. I'm going to be definitely keeping an eye on Pete Carroll's debut in Vegas. Geno Smith, first game for the Raiders. Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers. New England, a 2.5-point favorite at home. I think this just comes down to who's at home, because I think this Raiders offense can definitely give this Patriots defense struggles. The Patriots, they replaced a lot of guys on the defense. I believe I saw it was like 6 guys, and that's a tough to bring in a new scheme, bring in 6 guys and have them expecting them all to mesh early in week 1. I think the Patriots offense is going to look promising, though. I'm really high on Drake May, and I think Travion Henderson's definitely a really good pick for them in the second round. So I think there's going to be points in this. So I think this will be a fun game. Geno and Genty, I think Genty's going to have a great day against this Patriots defense. I'm going to take the Raiders here to stir things up at home. To stir things up in the Patriots' home in their first game. I think that Pete Carroll's a coach that when he's not expected to win, he just finds ways to win. We obviously that year, a few years ago, first year without Russ, him and Geno go to the playoffs. I think a lot of people are saying this Raiders team isn't that great, and I don't think the roster is that great, but I could definitely see him winning about 8 games, and I think they start up here as underdogs on the road against New England. Up next, we're going to New Orleans. Arizona Cardinals at the New Orleans Saints. I'm keeping it simple here. I think the Cardinals are going to win this game. I don't know how fun this game's going to be to watch. I think if the Cardinals do what they should do, this could get ugly. The Saints roster is just not very good. Alvin Kamara is just kind of in the dumpster fire by himself. And the Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon, his defense really stifled his own division. I saw a stat, I believe they've swept the Rams and the Niners, or not the Rams. They lost the Rams last game of the season, but they had a really good year in the division last year, and his defense was the main part of that. So I think him going up against Spencer Rattler, not a good spot for the Saints, but when is there really going to be a good spot for the Saints anytime this season? Cardinals are 7-point favorites going into New Orleans. I think this is all about Kyler Murray here. Again, a guy, he has a lot to prove to people. He needs to show that he's not just an average quarterback. He can be above average. He can be a guy that can take his team to the playoffs and have the potential to make a run. And it's about time for him to show that to the fans, to the front office, to the coaching staff. So he needs to start hot, and I think they do. I think the Cardinals take down the Saints for sure there. Next game, we got Steelers at Jets. Aaron Glenn, first game as a Jets head coach. Aaron Rodgers, revenge game. Justin Fields, revenge game. Pittsburgh's a 2.5-point favorite going on the road to MetLife. I think this game's going to be ugly. I think there's going to be turnovers. It's going to be low scoring. And I think I'm going to take the Jets here. And my reason for that is this Pittsburgh team is really hard to read for me. This is not a typical Mike Tomlin team where it feels like he's in control of all his guys. He has his team bought in. I don't know if I feel that way about the Steelers this year. They signed Aaron Rodgers, and he's not the typical Mike Tomlin quarterback. He's always been a guy who's going to be about himself. He's going to be all about the Aaron Rodgers show. They trade for DK Metcalf, who is not a Mike Tomlin guy. He makes stupid, boneheaded penalties, drops easy passes, can't really make a contested catch. They pay him like a wide receiver one, which he hasn't really proved yet. Trade away George Pickens. You got Cam Hayward, the leader of your defense, who got extended last year, trying to hold out through camp to get another extension. It just feels like there's a lot going on with the Steelers. And I think Justin Fields can go into this game with a chip on his shoulder. I think Aaron Glenn, he's installing the mindset that he wants to install into this Jets team. I think the defense is still going to be good. It's going to be tough to score on them. And I think it's going to be a grinded out football game for the Jets on offense. They got Breece Hall. Justin Fields going to be using his legs, obviously. You have Garrett Wilson, too, who can run. They can stretch out that secondary. Jalen Ramsey, they made the trade for, Pittsburgh did. But I think this is going to be a game that's going to be like 19-15. And I think I can see the Jets pulling it out in Rodgers' debut for the Steelers going south. Maybe him and DK get into it on the sideline. Miscommunications all over the joint. It's going to be an interesting one. Up next, you got the Giants at Commanders. Washington Commanders 6.5-point favorites at home. Russell Wilson throwing some moon balls to Malik Neighbors. I think this is a game the Commanders win. I'm not as strong about the Commanders as like maybe some people are. It's on an old roster, but I think they're going to beat up on the Giants. They're definitely going to beat up on the teams they're supposed to win. That's all I really have to say about this game. Jaden Daniels, a lot of people have him as the MVP. Can he start this season off strong, scoring points against this Giants defense? I'm interested to see how Russ looks. He had his moments last year in Pittsburgh, but I feel like Dable's probably the right guy that for Russ at this stage of his career. Daboll needs a guy who can run the offense correctly. Russ is going to throw deep balls to Malik Neighbors. And they can be fun at times, but I mean, all that whole New York fan base, they're just waiting to see Jackson Dart. It's kind of a weird spot for Russell Wilson. Next, we got the Panthers at the Jaguars. Jacksonville, 3.5-point favorites at home. I think I'm taking the Panthers here. Dave Canales, second year as the coach there. Bryce Young played a lot in the preseason. They want to get him comfortable. They're trying to avoid that slow start that they had last year. Hetero McMillan, fun receiver out there in Carolina. They trade Adam Thielen back to Minnesota. The last few weeks they did that. And Chuba Hubbard at running back. And I don't really know how to feel about the Jaguars. Liam Cohen, obviously, he's been notoriously good for quarterbacks and offenses. But this is a big prove-it year for Trevor Lawrence. And I just don't know if I see it yet. And obviously he has the weapons. He has Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter. One thing I'm really interested to see in this game is How much does Travis Hunter play on defense? I saw the depth chart. He's listed as a starting receiver and a backup cornerback, but I mean, what does that really mean? Like, because how much is a backup cornerback going in? Are they going to give him a drive or two in there? Is he purely if someone gets hurt, like some snaps in the slot? Like, I want to see how they navigate this, especially early in the season. So you don't want to run the number 2 pick in the ground. But I am really excited to see how Bryce Young comes out this year. Obviously, last year, really bad start of the season, gets benched. Seems like they might be done with him. And then they give him a chance again, and he was pretty liked out the rest of the season. So this is a big spot for him, big spot for Lawrence. Lawrence has got to start the season off strong with Liam Cohn. I think it's an entertaining game, probably higher end on points, but I like the Panthers to go into Jacksonville and spoil Liam Cohn's debut. Or onto the 1:00 games, we got Titans at Broncos, and talk about soft landings. This is the opposite of that for number 1 pick Cam Ward, going up against arguably the best defense in the league. Vance Joseph, one of the best defense coordinators in football. Bo Nix, I'm interested to see how he looks second year in the Sean Payton offense. Struggled to start the year last year, but definitely came on better. A lot of people are high on this Broncos team, and if anyone's gonna dethrone the Chiefs, they think it's gonna be them. I don't know if I see it yet. Obviously, they can just rely on that defense, but I mean, I need Bo Nix to eliminate some of those mistakes he makes at times. But I think this is definitely this might be the easiest pick of the week. Denver over Tennessee. I think Cam Ward's got the talent, but they're not really surrounding him by a lot of greatness there. I mean, that receiver room, they got the corpse of Tyler Lockett. All respect to Tyler Lockett, but it's just not the best situation for a rookie quarterback. Tony Pollard at running back, Calvin Ridley, who I think's a stud. He's probably going to get fed, but other than that, where's the talent there on the offense? And that's all I really have to say about the game. Probably, I could see Denver winning that game by 10 plus points, to be honest. Next, we got the Lions Packers, which, I mean, after the moves the last week, the Micah Parsons trade, I believe the Lions switched with the Packers 1.5 point favorites at home in Lambeau. Another tough game to start the season for the Lions. And I think I got the Packers taking this one with all the juice that they're going to have in that stadium. The stadium's going to be popping. Micah Parsons trade, he should be playing. I mean, we saw those reports come up about his back during this week, but I expect him to be out there. How are the Lions going to look in their first game with 2 new coordinators? Just having to navigate that going into a division game, that's going to mean a lot later in the season for sure. Based on tiebreakers, I expect both these teams to be very close there at the end. And how's Matthew Golden going to look? Raving reviews coming out of camp. He's definitely going to be a guy you're looking out for out there. I think this game's definitely one that's going to come down to the wire. Jahmyr Gibbs taking over full running back 1, it seems like, over through camp, but he's always someone that's going to be dangerous. But I think this is a win for the Packers and a win to start off the Micah Parsons era in Green Bay. Next, we got the Texans at the Rams. Not a fun start for Matthew Stafford. I think didn't practice much throughout the majority of training camp, so I want to see how is he really going to look. Is his back fully healthy, or is he just going out there because he feels like he needs to play for his team? And I mean, Will Anderson coming off the edge, one wrong hit from him, and you obviously don't know how he's going to be feeling every time he gets up. Every time he takes a little hit, anything could affect that back, even if it's just trying to make a throw down the field. Anything could tweak that back. Rams are 3.5 point favorites at home, but this is no easy. This is going to be a defensive battle. I think another low scoring game. Offenses tend to be sloppy in week 1, and for both these teams against 2 of arguably the best D lines in the league. Obviously, the Rams, Braden Fisk, Jared Verse, against the Texans offensive line that was by far and away one of the worst offensive lines in all of football last year. And I don't really know what they did to make it that much better in the offseason. I mean, they got Laken Tomlinson coming over from the Seahawks, who he wasn't very great last year, and he's going to be the starting left guard there in Houston. Obviously, overhauled the scheme, got rid of Bobby Slowick, but I'm not really sure. And obviously, they got those 2 rookie wide receivers, Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, Nico Collins, the alpha, that receiver room. The talent's there on the outside, but how is that offensive line looking? Are they going to be able to run the ball? Obviously, Joe Mixon not playing. They got Nick Chubb coming off a season-ending injury last season. They're going to need that run game and that offensive line to be serviceable to get their receivers involved in the pass game. So I think this one, another one that could be ugly. CJ Stroud had a bit of a sophomore slump, so hoping to see how he bounces back. I think he will. But I mean, that defense is stacked. Will Anderson on one edge, Daniil Hunter on the other edge, Aziz Al-Shaair, great middle linebacker. Derek Stingley Jr., one of the best DBs in the league. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think defensive battle for sure. I'm going to take the Texans here. I'm going to take the underdog going into LA just based on the fact that it's hard for me to believe in Matthew Stafford right now with all the reports. If I saw, obviously it can be 1 week, and I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if he came out there and looked great. But it's just hard to gauge at this point with a back injury of an old quarterback. That's what it comes down to. For the game of the week, for me, definitely 49ers at Seahawks. Huge divisional matchup to open the season in Seattle. And I think this game comes down as just the Seahawks run game versus the 49ers defensive line. Seahawks, the whole story of the offseason, they overhaul the defensive line. They overhaul the offensive line. Clint Kubiak, John Benson coming in to save us. But it's a majority of the same players. It's still Charles Cross at left tackle. It's still Abe Lucas at right tackle. You draft Gray Zabel in the first round. Right guard, you're running it back with Anthony Bradford, who had his fair share of bad plays in the last season. But he's in the best shape of his life. Jalen Sundell wins the center job. And Kenneth Walker should be healthy. It's what everything sound like he's going to be. Full go against this defensive line that the 49ers invested a lot of talent into. CJ West, Alfred Collins, Michael Williams. But CJ West and Michael Williams are both listed as questionable right now. You obviously got Nick Bosa. He's listed as questionable right now too. I expect him to play. But if they're banged up, and these guys didn't practice a lot in the preseason, they didn't play a lot in the preseason games. They did practice. Excuse me. And then you go to the secondary. DeAndre Lenore looks as questionable. Jason Pinnock, questionable. I mean, if they're facing the banged up 49ers defense in week one that doesn't seem like it's practiced together as much leading up to it, that doesn't seem like a good sign for them. Another thing I'm going to be watching is this Seahawks secondary should dominate this 49ers receiver. The 49ers have just elevated Marquez Valdes-Scantling to the opening roster for week one, a guy that was cut by the Seahawks, a guy that didn't make any plays in camp against these Seahawks DBs he's going to be going up against. Jawan Jennings is listed as questionable. They're going to need him to go. Ricky Pearsall, obviously, was a rookie last year. What are you going to get from him? I feel like he's going to have to be relied on to. There's a lot of workload to replace. They have to replace all the Deebo Samuel production. George Kittle's the one guy that always scares you there because I don't really know. I love the secondary, but I don't know if we have the matchup for him. A safety on a tight end with George Kittle, who's a guy who's always played pretty well against the Seahawks. But I don't see any world where Reek Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, even Josh Jobs at times can't guard MBS, Jawan Jennings, and Ricky Pearsall, especially with the Seahawks pass rush that we have talked about. Should be able to get after Brock Purdy and this offensive line of the 49ers. Obviously, you got Trent Williams, but he's not the same Trent Williams he was. You got Colton McKivitz at right tackle. What did he have to prove? 5th rounder in 2020. Dominic Pooney, questionable at right guard, was great last year. Great rookie. Someone I wish the Seahawks would have taken a chance on. But those are the two things I'm looking at on the Seahawks offense versus the Niners defense and the Seahawks defense versus the Niners offense. Another just thing I'm going to be watching as a fan is I wonder how much Eamon Warrior is going to play on defense. Obviously, they gave him a lot of reps out there in the preseason, but how much he's definitely going to be a part of the game plan. But how much is McDonald going to put him out there, especially in important times when you can't have defensive assignments missed? And just the key to the game for the offense, in my opinion, is can they stay ahead of the sticks? Can Sam Darnold not turn the ball over? Don't take a sack on first down. No stupid penalties. No holdings. A holding on first down, you put it at 1st and 20. That almost kills the drive or the way the Seahawks want to play football. No Anthony Bradford personal fouls. They have to play this game smart. They can't get themselves behind and be forced to drop back and throw with this pass game, who it's a little unproven. There's little big play threat there. Honestly, there's a little bit there. So I'm picking the Seahawks, obviously, but there's a lot to watch there. And I think there's a lot of factors based on that'll decide how this game's going to play out. And then we get to Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football, I think it's just going to be a fun game. I'm looking forward to it. Baltimore at Buffalo, rematch of that playoff game last year where Baltimore's driving down 8. They score, 2-point conversion. Lamar rolls right. Mark Andrews drops it. Mark Andrews had, I think, probably the worst game of his career in that game. Two teams with high expectations. Both teams, both fan bases, both front offices going into this season thinking is this the year we can dethrone the Chiefs? I'm not quite sure if it is, but both of them have Super Bowl expectations. These are two teams that they need to do it. They've both had their years where they get to the playoffs and Mahomes beat them. It's time for both these teams to make a statement. Um, Ravens defense, I love they added Malachi Starks, Jair Alexander. And I mean, I think that's part of the reason I'm picking the Ravens in this game. I think Lamar fully healthy. Whenever he's fully healthy, start of the season in general, obviously he's going to be going into to week 1. But whenever he's fully healthy, he's dangerous, man, and he is. Obviously, always raving reports coming out. You got Joey Bosa on the Bills, which is it's kind of weird to see. It's going to be weird. Shaq Thompson going over the Bills too, former Panther, former Husky. This will be a good game, a good wrap up to the first Sunday of the year, and I think I'm taking Baltimore. I'm going to talk about the Bears and Vikings game on Monday because we'll have a show dropping Monday to recap all of the week 1 action. But I'm going to talk about a few teams in the AFC. I kind of touched on some things going through those games. So I'm going to talk about what teams I like to come out of each division and make the playoffs in the AFC. All right, going to go around the AFC now. It's going to keep this a little brief because we touched about most of the main points about each of those teams when I was going through those games. But AFC East, it's the Buffalo Bills division to lose. You got the New York Jets, who I think can be pretty bad, but they know that. The fans know that going into the season. The Patriots, I think they could be better, but first year with a new coach, I don't think the pieces on the roster are necessarily there. I think Vrabel is the guy in the long term, but that's not a team that's going into the year with playoff or bust. Like if they show promise, if Drake May shows promise and they win 7 or 8 games, like that's an acceptable outcome there. The Dolphins, this is the make or break year for Mike McDaniel, Tua. I mean, Tyreek's probably going to be gone after this season. He's going to want out if it goes poorly. A lot of expectations for Tua too. It's just been him and Mike McDaniel, them two. The mesh between them two has been pretty negative. They haven't really shown there has been much to see there, and that front office, that owner needs to see something, or McDaniel's going to get kicked to the curb. And the Bills are the Bills. I mean, they're going to win this division. They're going to be there at the end of the season, and they're going to have a chance to go to the Super Bowl, whether they make it or not. They got to go through. It's going to be them, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. It's a 3-horse race, and who knows whose year it is coming out of the conference. We go to the AFC North. Ravens just talked about. We know who they are. We know their identity. Harbaugh's always going to have his guys ready. With Lamar, if Lamar stays healthy, it seems going to the playoffs. I think the Bengals could give them a run for their money in the division. It all just comes down to that defense. That defense was awful last year. Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, who amount for 15, 20% of their cap. They're going to give you 35 to 40 points a game. If you don't win a game multiple times, scoring that many points, there's a problem. They replaced Lou Anarumo. They get Hendricks signed, but at the end of the day, it's one guy. And can he bring the whole defense together, hold them together? They tried to bring in new pieces, but it's young too. They don't have a lot of money to go out and get guys. But I mean, with Joe Burrow as your quarterback, Jamar Chase a receiver, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, good young running back, you're going to be in every game. It's just can your defense get the stops when they need to? Realistically, I think they will get back to the playoffs. The Bengals, I don't know if they're going to win the division, but I think the Bengals and Ravens are both coming out of the North into the playoffs. The Browns, I don't really know why Joe Flacco's starting. I mean, I get it. I feel like it's an early season thing. Kevin Stefanski could be coaching for his job, which is unfortunate because he doesn't have a lot to work with. And he's a guy he's a great coach. I think he's a really good coach, but he just is stuck with a tough situation there. Deshaun Watson's going to be healthy soon. He's going to be like, I want to play, but they should trade Joe. I could see them trading Joe to the first team that is in need of a quarterback. Because at the end of the day, you're not making the playoffs this year. Let me see both your rookie quarterbacks. If you're bad and you have a high-end draft pick next year, you need to know if you have the future in your building or if you need to draft it. So play Gabriel, I guess, if you guys really want to do that. Play Shador for a few games. Just show everyone, because that's all everyone's going to want. They're going to be like, we want to see the rookies. They want to see Shador. If he's bad and you play him, you show he's not the future. But just holding him on your bench and having Joe Flacco go out there, who I think he's still serviceable. He's going to feed Jerry Jeudy. That's not really helping anyone in the long term, though. The Steelers, talked about it earlier. Don't know what to expect from this team. it's Mike Tomlin, so you could totally see them going out there, getting them to 9 or 10 wins, sneaking into the playoffs, beating the Bengals, giving the Ravens a run for their money. But with the way this team's built, I could see this team crashing and burning and having what is presumably the last year of Aaron Rodgers' career be a pretty big failure, as his last 2 years in New York were. To the South, I think it's the Texans division to lose, but the Texans have a tough schedule, and they're going to have to win their division games. I mean, they start the season in LA, then they're home versus Tampa Bay. Then you get Jacksonville and Tennessee, 2 divisional games, and then you're at Baltimore, at Seattle, versus San Francisco, versus Denver. And that 4-game stretch, you're playing Baltimore, who's a favorite in the AFC, Seattle, who I think is going to be a good team, San Francisco, who everyone's all over in the NFC, and Denver, who's one of the best defenses in the league. Then you have your two division games, Jacksonville and Tennessee again, and then you're versus Buffalo, at Indianapolis, and you're at the Chiefs. Like they kind of have to dominate the division, and I think they're a good team. Obviously, they have the talent at receiver we were talking about earlier. They have a stud defensive line, and I think D'Amico Ryans is a great coach, but they can't lollygag around in division games and lose games they're supposed to win with that gauntlet of this rest of the schedule they have to play. I'm not saying they're going to get swept by all those hard teams, but you're not expected to go undefeated in those games. You need to win your division games against Jacksonville versus Tennessee, and versus Indianapolis. Indianapolis, Shane Steichen's trying to save his job. He's trying to go with the safer option. He thinks it's Daniel Jones. I just don't know if that's going to work out, to be honest. I think that Richardson, obviously, the boomer bust is there. I mean, we know the athlete he is. I don't necessarily think he's a very good NFL quarterback, but I think you're better off writing it out and seeing if you can find something there, whatever it is. If you can find a way to play to where Anthony Richardson can be on the field and be the athlete that he is and get you to win football games, I think that's the better call. And I think he will start a few games at some point. The Titans talked about a Cam Ward situation a little bit earlier. I think I feel some promise about him, but again, that roster is just not very good. I'm not expecting Brian Callahan could be out after this year, which is unfortunate because I think he's a solid NFL coach from what we've seen. But I mean, sometimes front offices just move on no matter the situation. The Jags are going to be fun if Lawrence is good and the player he was supposed to be coming out of college with those guys at receiver. They could be entertaining. They could be very entertaining with Liam Cohn, who's been very good as an offensive coordinator. He's moved his way up every year. He's finally going to stick in one spot in Jacksonville. How's he going to work out? We shall see, but that's a fun team. That if I could see anyone rivaling the Texans, I think it's the Jaguars. And to the AFC West, I think it's still the Chiefs division. A lot of the public has been on the Broncos recently. Talked about the Chargers earlier. I just don't know what you're going to get out of that offense. I feel like it's Herbert and Ladd and Omarion, but what else are you going to get from everyone else? You need Trey Harris to step up. What are you going to get from the corpse of Keenan Allen? Can that offensive line protect Herbert? They need to keep him on his feet. That guy's gone through too many injury concerns in his last few years. But I think Marion Hampton's going to be good, and I think Harbaugh's always going to scrap out football games. Those Raiders versus Chargers games, Pete Carroll versus Harbaugh, those are going to be real fun. Talking about the Raiders, I think they're going to be a team that surprises people. People think they're not going to win the division, and I don't necessarily think they're going to make the playoffs, but Pete Carroll's fun. He makes teams fun. He keeps them in games that they shouldn't be in. And for the Chiefs, kind of like I just with the Texans, like their division games are no slouch. Like I think they're the better team than all of them, but those games against the Broncos aren't going to be easy. The games against the Raiders, Pete Carroll knows how to keep his guys in games, and Harbaugh's not going to roll over with the Chargers. So I think it could be fun. I think it's going to come down more to the end of the season than it usually does. I think they are going to drop a few, but I think that's a division the Chiefs are going to win. All right, to wrap up the show, just going to talk about some things going on this week. And first, I'm going to give some predictions for some awards. MVP, I think it's Joe Burrow's year. I think he would have won it last year if they just simply make the playoffs. I think they do that this year, and that just relies on his arm. I think he probably goes for almost 5,000 yards, leads the league in touchdowns. It's his year to win the MVP. And then the NFL, they have voter fatigue. Voter fatigue is the only reason that Josh Allen won it over Lamar last year. I think if you have three guys with similar resumes, and Allen and Lamar have already won MVP, obviously, it's Burrow's. It's Burrow's award. Dark horse, Michael Penix Jr. I'm expecting a big rise from him, a Mahomes level rise. That's it. That's a value. It's a value bet right there. Offensive player of the year, I think it's Jamar Chase for the same reason. I mean, it's them too. They are the Bengals. Dark horse Nico Collins, I think he can kind of have. I wouldn't be surprised if he went out there and had over 1,500 receiving yards. That offense, there's so many big plays from C.J. Stroud to Nico Collins, and Stroud wasn't his best at times last year. I think he's going to have a more on track third season to who C.J. Stroud is. Defensive player of the year, I would be surprised if Will Anderson Jr., I could see him winning that award, leading a good Texans defense, racking up the sacks. A lot of people are on Micah there ever since he went to Green Bay, but I don't know. I would be surprised if Micah missed a game or two. I don't think this back injury is a total like facade for the Cowboys to like hold out. I think it actually is something. I wouldn't be surprised if he missed a few games. Got Will Anderson there. And I'm gonna make a little Super Bowl prediction. This is just going off my head. What I'm feeling right now. This could change at any time. It's gonna be chalk. People aren't gonna like it, but I think I'm taking the Chiefs of the AFC because I think they're gonna get better. I think their offense is gonna be better than it was last year. I think more big plays, especially when Rashee Rice comes back healthy. And I think after the first 6 weeks without Rashee Rice is gonna be good for Xavier Worthy. I think it is gonna help him come into his own as a receiver. And this might be a little recency bias, but I think I'm going to go with the Packers. Chiefs versus Packers in the Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs win it. Call me boring. But I think that's my prediction right now. Could change, but talk a little college football. Only game I really want to talk about of note is Oklahoma-Michigan in Oklahoma. This will be a fun game just based on the two quarterbacks. Bryce Underwood in his first tough game. Obviously, the opener against New Mexico last week, but they struggled a little bit. New Mexico hung around versus John Mateer's first big game in Oklahoma. SEC atmosphere at home. Game day is going to be there. Moneyline Mateer. And yeah, it should be a fun one. Sharon Moore, Brent Venables. Venables is on the hot seat. He needs to win this game. If he doesn't win this game, it's going to start to come down for him in Norman. So that'll be good. The Huskies taking on UC Irvine at home. Want to see the defense be dominant. I want to see us shut them out, give the late garbage time touchdown maybe, and get the Bond out of there early in the second half. No need to play them that much against UC Irvine. Get out of there with the win. Defense look dominant. All I'm looking for from the Huskies. And I think that's going to be it for this episode. Going to have a recap of the week coming out Monday morning. I'm going to try and record Sunday night, and I'll talk about all the games, preview the Monday night game, anything that went on over the weekend. Follow me on Twitter at Cawley Diego. I'm going to be tweeting all weekend as stuff goes on. And subscribe to the YouTube. I just got the YouTube channel going, Diego Cawley FB Show. Give it a subscribe. Give the episode a like. Leave a comment. And just keep leaving reviews on Spotify, on Apple. And if you enjoyed the podcast, share it with your friends. Share it with someone you think would like it. And I hope everyone has a great weekend. I hope everyone can watch as much football as I'm going to be watching. Yeah, have a good one. Enjoy the football, everyone.